Here's something to really chew on: that repetitive thought in your head.
Hmm.
Our source today calls it both the most beautiful and powerful thing and, well, sometimes the most dangerous.
Yeah, it's quite the paradox, isn't it?
It really is. Think about that inner voice for a second. It can build you up or, keep you stuck.
Absolutely.
So today we're really digging into understanding and hopefully changing those negative repetitive thought patterns.
Right.
Our goal to help you kind of rewire your thinking towards states you actually want, like genuine self-worth, love, abundance.
And what's really interesting about the source material, this chat between Jay Shetty and Dr. Joe Dispenza, it's not just positive thinking fluff.
No, definitely not.
It digs into the biology, like the real mechanics behind these thoughts. So for you, our listener, wanting to do this quickly, thoroughly, think of this as the fast track to Dispenza's key ideas on how your brain shapes things.
Exactly. We've got the transcript from that Jay Shetty podcast, and it's packed, really practical stuff. Our mission here is to pull out those key principles, the actual steps you can try to consciously shift your thoughts and, well, your emotions too.
Let's do it.
Okay, so let's dive in. Where does this whole loop of negative thoughts and feelings even start?
What often kicks off with just a thought, but then it gets repeated over and over.
Right.
And eventually, that repetition turns it into a belief. Dispenza really hammers this point about repetition. He says, nerve cells that fire together wire together.
Ah, that famous phrase.
Yeah. So think about it. The more you think a certain thought, the more you activate that specific brain pathway. It gets stronger, more automatic. You're literally building the wiring for how you'll think in the future.
So it's like walking the same path in a field over and over.
Yeah.
Eventually there's a groove and you just follow it without thinking. Okay, so when we're stuck in that negative loop, what's happening, like, biologically in our bodies and brains?
Dispenza breaks down the cycle pretty clearly. You have that recurring negative thought, right?
Mhm.
That grows into a belief. That belief then starts guiding your choices.
Hmm.
Those choices lead to certain behaviors.
Makes sense.
And those behaviors create experiences, which then generate those familiar negative feelings.
Which then triggers the same original thought again.
Bingo. It's a closed loop. And the key thing is your biology, your brain circuits, your neurochemistry, hormones, even how your genes are expressed. It can all stay locked in that same pattern. Because fundamentally, your internal state isn't changing.
Wow.
Imagine your brain releasing chemicals that actually make you feel that negativity more strongly. It makes breaking out even tougher.
That's a powerful picture. You feel, I don't know, unworthy, so you subconsciously choose things that confirm it,
Yeah.
leading to experiences that just prove, quote unquote, that you're unworthy. A biological echo chamber.
That's a great way to put it.
But Dispenza says trying to break this cycle often feels, well, bad, right? Uncomfortable.
Oh, definitely. When you consciously try to interrupt that automatic program, your body, which has literally gotten used to those chemicals, those feelings,
It's addicted, almost.
it essentially craves them. It craves the familiar negative emotions tied to those thoughts. So just thinking about not feeling unworthy can make the body demand that feeling of unworthiness.
Seriously.
Yeah, the body fights back, influencing the mind to pump out more of those negative thoughts. Dispenza calls it an assault of negativity from within.
An assault. It sounds like your own body becomes the opposition when you try to change.
Precisely. And here's where it gets really tricky. Your brain starts actively looking for proof in the outside world to back up those old beliefs.
Oh, right. Confirmation bias.
Exactly. You might be working on feeling better inside, but if your job or relationship hasn't changed yet, your brain might grab onto any little thing that fits the old "I'm not good enough" story.
Hmm.
And because of that, sadly, a lot of people just slide back into the familiar, that feeling of unworthiness, maybe not because it feels good, but because it feels normal. It's the comfort of the known self, even if it's painful.
Wow. Okay, so the very first crucial step seems to be just noticing, becoming aware you're even in this cycle.
That's the gateway.
How do we actually, take that step off the treadmill?
That's where becoming conscious and intentional really matters. Dispenza talks about that key moment. You notice those unconscious thoughts running the show.
Like catching them in the act.
Yes. And then you make a firm decision.
Yeah?
Okay? I'm not going unconscious to that anymore. It means actively stopping yourself from making the choices or doing the behaviors tied to the old habits.
Inhibiting the old program.
Right. That creates the space, the opportunity to start reconditioning your body to a new mind, more positive one. He calls it navigating the river of change.
The river of change. I like
It
that.
means being constantly aware, checking in. What am I thinking? What am I feeling? Do I want to feel this way right now?
Okay, so it's like hitting pause before the automatic reaction kicks in. But then how do we actually install the new thoughts, the positive ones?
Through repetition, but it has to be intentional and attentive.
Okay.
Despiz explains that when you consciously focus, really focus, on a desired thought, let's say, I'm worthy of love, with both intention and attention.
Not just passively repeating it.
Exactly. That activates your prefrontal cortex, the thinking, deciding part of the brain. This tells your brain, hey, this new thought is important. It assigns meaning.
Right.
And that starts the process of building new neural circuits. The more consistently you do this with focus, the stronger those new connections get. They become more hardwired, more automatic, until eventually they form a new belief.
Like nurturing a new path in that field.
Precisely. Like planting a seed and watering it diligently.
So repetition plus intention. Got it. Now, he also said this conscious effort is hardest when it counts the most. Why is that?
Well, think about it. When you're in a tough situation, stressed out, feeling vulnerable,
Yeah.
your brain, if those new positive pathways aren't super strong yet, will naturally just default back to the old negative ones.
A path of least resistance.
Exactly. Those old pathways have years, maybe decades of reinforcement. They're the brain's easy button. That's why you need that consistent conscious effort, especially those tough moments when the old programming wants to take over.
Okay. That makes sense. Now, another thing that jumped out was mental rehearsal. It sounds like visualization, but maybe more active.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It's visualization with a proactive purpose. Dispenza talks about the power of mentally rehearsing how you want to act and feel in specific future situations.
Like before a big meeting or a difficult conversation.
Exactly. Or even just dealing with traffic. You
Yeah.
mentally walk through it, picturing yourself handling it calmly, feeling how you want to feel.
Okay.
And the amazing thing is, your brain doesn't really know the difference between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. On a neurological level, they're surprisingly similar.
Seriously?
Yeah. So by mentally practicing, you're actually installing the neural hardware, the circuits, for those desired behaviors and feelings before the event even happens.
That's incredible. You can basically pre-program yourself for, say, confidence in that meeting.
That's the idea. And it goes beyond just actions. Dispensa stresses teaching your body emotionally what those desired states feel like.
Like worthiness, gratitude, abundance.
Right. Feeling them before they show up in your life. You don't wait for the external world to change to feel worthy. You start cultivating that feeling internally first.
And how does that internal emotional shift affect our biology then?
Well, when you genuinely, consistently elevate your emotional state, your body, which is just this objective machine, right, starts to believe it's living in a new reality, a new environment.
Even if nothing outside has changed yet.
Even then. And since your environment signals your genes, and the end product of any experience is an emotion, you're essentially signaling new genes, positive genes, ahead of the environment. You're conditioning your body to match that new positive mind.
Wow. This really puts the power back in our hands, doesn't it? And meditation seems like a core tool for all of this.
Oh, absolutely fundamental. Dispenza has a simple definition. Meditation is basically becoming familiar with your old self, the programmed one, and your new self, the one you're creating.
Getting to know both versions.
Exactly. It's about deliberately slowing your brainwaves down, getting access to the operating system, the subconscious mind.
Where all those automatic programs live.
That's right, so you can start rewriting them.
He talked about different brain waves, beta, alpha, theta. Can you break those down quickly?
Sure. Beta is our normal waking state, thinking, analyzing, focused outward.
Okay.
Alpha is when we relax, become more imaginative. It's like the doorway to the subconscious.
Right.
And theta is deeper, more dreamlike, hypnotic. That's where you're highly suggestible, where really deep change can happen.
So when we're stressed, mind racing, overwhelmed, that's probably high beta.
Typically, yeah. High-frequency beta. It's linked to stress, survival mode, constantly scanning for threats outside.
And that makes it hard to get to alpha and theta.
Exactly. That high beta state blocks access to those deeper, more receptive states where you can actually do the reprogramming. So learning to consciously shift your brain waves to calm down from high beta into alpha and theta, that's a crucial skill for this whole process.
And it seems like stress itself is a massive player in keeping us stuck in those negative loops.
Huge. It's central. Dispenza points out, stress often gets triggered when we feel like we can't predict or control something in our lives.
That feeling of uncertainty.
Right. And that perception flips the switch on the fight or flight response,
Hmm.
flooding us with stress hormones.
Okay.
And he lists emotions like anger, frustration, control, hatred, envy, jealousy, insecurity, unworthiness, guilt, shame, suffering, depression, all basically derived from those stress chemicals.
Wow.
So what psychology might call normal consciousness under chronic stress is actually an altered state physiologically. It's disrupting our body's natural balance and homeostasis.
So those negative feelings aren't just feelings, they're signals our body is out of whack.
Precisely. And the stronger the negative emotion, the more it grabs our attention, focuses our energy on the problem.
Reinforcing the stress.
Exactly. It feeds itself. That's why Dispenza says it's so important to consciously disconnect, even temporarily, from the stressful situation, to choose who you want to be inside, rather than just reacting to the stress outside.
He also had that really deep point about emotions being records of the past. What did he mean by that?
Yeah, that's powerful. When you feel an emotion, especially a familiar one, your body is basically reliving the past event where that emotion was dominant.
Like a body memory.
Exactly. So if
Yeah.
you're constantly feeling unworthy, your body is living in the past experiences that created that feeling. It keeps you anchored there, unable to be fully present or create something new.
And it harms us physically too, right?
Definitely. Holding on to those negative states, Dispenza argues, actually downregulates beneficial genes and can contribute to disease. So forgiveness, in this light, isn't just about letting someone else off the hook.
It's about freeing yourself.
It's a practical act, overcoming the negative emotion, redirecting your attention and energy away from it, liberating yourself biologically.
Okay. So releasing the past. But he also talked about the body fighting back, resisting change. Why does it do that?
Because it's conditioned. Through all that repetition, the body gets used to feeling certain ways. And the brain, always trying to predict the future based on the past.
It doesn't like surprises.
Right. It resists deviation from the known pattern. So it's hard to stay present because your body is often subconsciously waiting for the familiar negative feeling to return. When you try to change, the body literally sends out cravings for those old emotions because, weirdly, they feel safe and known.
Wow.
The key, he says, is when those cravings or old feelings pop up, you consciously notice them and bring your attention back to the present moment. You just settle back down without feeding the old feeling.
It sounds like it takes real willpower, grit.
It does. He calls it an uncompromising will. It's like training an animal, he says, meaning your body.
The animal, I like that.
You have to consistently train it to detach from the old environmental cues and emotional habits.
Mm.
And when you manage to pull your attention and energy away from those past emotions,
Yeah.
you free up that energy. And it can then transmute, change form into elevated emotions like real gratitude, real love, often felt physically, like in the heart area.
And that shift in energy does even more, right? Something about the heart and brain.
Yes. He describes how that liberated energy can move from the heart up to the brain. This creates coherence, synchronization between the heart and brain.
Getting them in sync.
Right. And sometimes this can lead to gamma brainwave states. He calls that super consciousness.
Super consciousness.
Yeah, like a state of heightened awareness, expanded perception beyond our normal programming. And the crucial point is, these profound shifts come from inside. They lead to lasting change, a sense of wholeness, not dependent on anything outside changing first.
Okay, this is all incredibly hopeful, powerful stuff. But the big question for anyone listening has to be, how do you make it stick? Is consistency really that important?
It's everything, absolutely fundamental. He uses that animal training analogy again. You have to be consistent.
Right.
Now, that initial big breakthrough, that first powerful feeling of an elevated emotion, the arousal, he calls it, that could definitely create a huge shift, maybe even feel permanent right away for some.
For most people.
For most, sustained change means ongoing, dedicated practice. He talks about people having amazing healings from serious conditions, but then relapsing if they slid back into the old emotional patterns, forgetting to do the work.
So setbacks are normal?
Totally normal, part of the process. He asks, how many times do we have to forget until we stop forgetting? The key is just keep showing up. Keep practicing, even on days you don't feel like it, even when the outside world isn't showing you results yet. That internal work is where the real transformation happens.
Okay, so let's talk practicals. What are some techniques we can actually do? He mentioned breathwork and meditation specifically.
Yeah, the breathwork piece is fascinating. He says even just 1 minute of focused breathing can improve heart rate variability, calm, anxiety.
Because stress makes the heart and brain incoherent, out of sync.
Exactly. Stress causes chaos in those signals. But conscious breathing helps broaden your focus, slows the brain waves, creates coherence. And interestingly, when the heart is coherent, it actually produces a measurable magnetic field.
Wow. So the brain's electrical signals and the heart's magnetic signals work together.
They influence each other and potentially the field around us, as he suggests.
And he mentioned our listeners' own experience with breathwork helping anxiety.
Right? A real-world example right there. It
Yeah.
works. But he's also realistic. He knows these practices can feel hard at first, especially if you're facing like an immediate crisis.
Yeah, it's hard to meditate when the house is on fire, metaphorically speaking.
Right. And sometimes you do need that emergency response. But living in survival mode, long-term blocks, growth and repair, and trying to analyze your problems while you're in the feeling of distress.
Just keeps you stuck in the past emotion.
Exactly. So the choice becomes, are you a victim of your circumstances or are you a creator of your internal state?
He also suggested that idea of rehearsing scripts for tough situations. That sounds very concrete.
Very practical. Planning ahead how you want to respond emotionally to specific triggers, mentally practicing it. He also talked about different types of breath work he teaches.
Oh.
One aimed at pulling the mind out of the body, boosting brain energy and coherence. Another using more forceful breathing to potentially create euphoria and access deeper meditative states.
So different tools for different jobs.
Precisely. And for anyone wanting to learn these properly, he points to resources like his online progressive workshop, the week-long events, his book, Becoming Supernatural, and tutorials on his website. Lots of ways to learn.
Got it. And finally, he brought up this really intriguing idea about collective coherence. Groups of people influencing things.
Yeah, fascinating stuff. Research with random event generators machines that are supposed to be random.
Okay.
It suggests that when large groups meditate together, achieve that heart and brain coherence, and hold a common positive intention, like for healing, they can actually influence these machines, make them less random.
Whoa. So collective intention can affect physical reality.
That's the implication. It hints at the power of community coming together with positive focus, courage, compassion, love, especially in contrast to negativity.
And that applies on a smaller scale, too, like families, communities.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It relates it back to our daily lives. Shared practices, shared positive intentions within a family or group can create more synchronicity, better connection, just a better feeling all around.
Yeah.
His final point is really that working on yourself, it's not selfish.
It radiates outward.
Exactly. It makes you better in your relationships and you have a more positive impact on the world.
So wrapping this all up, as we've gone through this deep dive into Dr. Dispenza's ideas, it really feels like changing those stubborn negative thoughts and feelings isn't just wishful thinking.
No, it's presented as a tangible process.
It's not a magic wand, for sure. It takes work. Conscious awareness, clear intention, and actually doing the practices like meditation and breath work consistently. But through that effort, the potential is there to genuinely rewire our brains, build new beliefs, and, well, create a different reality from the inside out.
And it's grounded in understanding the biology, the neurology behind it all, not just abstract concepts, but how our bodies and minds actually work and how we can consciously engage with that process.
So as you listening, take a moment to sort of process all of this. Maybe think about this question. If your internal state really does shape your external reality,
Right.
what new reality will you start cultivating, maybe even starting today?